It was raining, and it had been raining on and off all day. And I remember I only had just about $3 or $4 left on my food stamp card. And I remember saying to myself, don't eat anything. Don't eat anything. Don't eat anything. Don't purchase anything. It was about 4 days of this. Don't purchase anything. Don't eat anything. Save it, save it, save it. I was battling my first staph infection, and just battling all the hardships of being on the streets. I had already had friends offer support only to take it away, and I had already had so many people judging me for the situation I was in, homelessness. It was around 11:30 at night at the Vons in Santa Monica, right off of Lincoln and Broadway. And I walk in knowing that I had that little bit of money on my food stamp card. And I knew I couldn't buy a pre-made sandwich. So I picked up a loaf of bread. And I tried to get the cheapest loaf I could find, and the cheapest sliced meat I could find, and a bottle of water. And I remember standing there in line, just thinking to myself, what am I going to do the rest of the night? It's cold, it's raining. I didn't have money to get on the bus, so it was going to be a night where I was out. When it came time for me to pay for my stuff, I slid my EBT card and I punched in the code, and it declined it. And I put one item back and slid it again, and it declined it. And then the cashier punched through and saw that I did in fact have food stamps on the card to cover it, but for some reason it wasn't letting the purchase go through. Meantime, there's people stacking up behind me, and he just looked at me. He called his manager over and told his manager, he goes, it's obviously his card, he's punched in the code and everything, and I can see that there's enough money on here to make this purchase, but for some reason it doesn't go through. And I remember someone saying in the line, he's pathetic. And I remember another person saying, I'm really in a hurry. Could you move your home out of the way? This was in Santa Monica, the place I was born and raised, a place that's been my family's home for more than 80 years. I was already feeling really, really defeated. I had already been to St. Joseph Center. I had already been to OPCC. I had been to downtown LA, and it was, services just weren't. I was told, oh, come back next week. We have an appointment for you next week. We'll take care of this next week. Well, next week was 3 days away. So I had to survive until next week. The manager just looked at me and he goes, there's nothing I can do. You don't have the money to pay. You need to get out of here. And the person right next to me just started laughing. Him and the people they were with, they just started laughing. And then somebody goes, go, go, go. You're holding us up. You homeless, just get in the way. And I remember walking out of the store in tears. I was beyond hungry. I felt so defeated, and I thought to myself, I've never been so humiliated. I've never been treated so badly. And I just remember thinking to myself that I would much rather them call me or anything racial than to say the things that they had just said to me. As I crossed Selma and Vine, there was a black man, an older black man on the corner, and his sign said, "I am unemployed and I am hungry. Please help." All those feelings of that night just came rushing back. There were people in front of me, there were people standing right next to him. They would look down and read their sign and then shake their head. I had $4. It's my laundry money. And I didn't hesitate. Our eyes met, and I reached into my pocket, I grabbed the $4, and he tried to give me this piece of paper that proved who he was and what was going on with him. And I just looked at him and I said, "That's not necessary." I said, "I hope this helps. I know it's not much, but I hope it helps." I started walking on. These 3 white women behind me, dressed very well, their Louis Vuitton bags and all this stuff, turned and said to me, "You know, you just wasted your money by doing that." And another one looked and she goes, why would you do that?" Like she was so disappointed in me. And I just looked at her and I said, "You know what? It could have been me. That could be me." And she goes, "Well, there's no way that'll ever be me." And I looked at her and I said, "You know what? I'm going to be very honest with you. I used to say that. I used to say there's no way that could ever be me. But for 29 months, while battling cancer, 14 months during the 29 months battling HIV, that was me. So never say never." I hear people all the time give reasons why they won't help homeless people, or why they won't lift a finger to reach out to help someone. And all it is an excuse. And my response to them is always, what if that were you? No friends, no family, no clothes, no home, no shoes, nothing to eat, nowhere to go. What if it were you? How would you like the response that you give homeless people? What if someone were giving you that same response? That same excuse? What if it were you? It was me for 29 months.
Homelessness, a plague that is severing the nation. Many different elements have affected Greenville's population in a negative way, resulting in an increase in homelessness. On January 29, 2009, the number of homeless people in South Carolina was reported to be 4,664 people, and the report of homeless in Greenville was 670 people. Many people have come to Greenville in hopes of getting a job, but without a permanent address, many companies will not hire someone who is branded with the name homeless. This causes people to get into a reoccurring cycle of homelessness and start to lose hope of ever gaining sustainability. Homeless is defined as having no home or haven. Foreclosure and debt are definite issues that cause homelessness. With the economy being so weak right now, families are struggling to get out from under debt. Tony McDade, the director of the homeless census in Greenville, said that the most common reason of homelessness lately is the debt and foreclosure. Foreclosure happens for many reasons, such as death, job loss, illness, inability to pay mortgage, inability to pay insurance, and inability to pay home taxes. Since the recession, the job market hasn't been the best, and finding a job that pays more than unemployment isn't easy. The average age of a person who is homeless is actually very young, the age of a kid in elementary school. The number of homeless students is increasing, which ultimately hinders the average education.
Unemployment improved a bit last month, but it's still nearly 9%. And the trouble is, job creation is so slow, it will be years before we get back the 7.5 million jobs lost in the Great Recession. American families have been falling out of the middle class in record numbers. The combination of lost jobs and millions of foreclosures means a lot of folks are homeless and hungry for the first time in their lives. One of the consequences of the recession that you don't hear much about is the record number of children descending into poverty. In Seminole County near Orlando, Florida, so many kids have lost their homes, school buses now stop at dozens of cheap motels where families crowd into rooms living week to week. 11-year-old Destiny Corfey joined the line at this motel a year ago.
I never really noticed what people were actually going through until now, until we're actually going through it too.
David and Teresa Corfey never imagined their family homeless. Together, they were making about $40 an hour detailing expensive cars. There was a 3-bedroom home, vacations, extras for the kids. But both jobs went, and then the house. Evicted, they found that the homeless shelters wanted to split their family up, boys and girls.
That was definitely something that I wasn't going to have, was being separated at a time like this. I figured that a time like this that we needed to be together more than anything.
So David, Teresa, Destiny, George, and Chance moved into their van.
George climbed up here on the back seat, and Destiny and Chance here.
I was embarrassed that maybe one of my friends might see me. I don't want anybody to know that I was actually in there.
Where was the van parked?
It was at a Walmart.
We would actually go in Walmart and clean ourselves up before we go to school.
Yeah, in the bathroom.
Save some money.
How would you do that?
I would wash my face and take a tissue, wash my arms and stuff.
We would bring the toothpaste and the toothbrush and the brushes, so we'll go brush our hair in the mirror and people would see us. Yeah. It would be kind of weird, but we worked through it.
Another element that contributes to homelessness is mental disorders. When people have a mental disability, they might not be able to be self-sufficient. And especially when they are homeless, they are not getting the proper medical attention needed to be stable. This is probably where the stereotype of homeless people being dangerous comes from. An excerpt from The Girl's Guide to Homelessness explains, "Whenever I meet a homeless person, I assume that if she were financially or mentally capable of affording and maintaining a home, then she would be in one. Most people that have mental illnesses and that are homeless usually self-medicate. When a mentally or physically ill person has certain pains or urges, they feel as if alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, heroin, methamphetamines, lysergic acid diethylamine, LSD, or sexual activity will help solve their problems. Typically, these activities help these people escape reality and go into a dreamlike state. The homeless population obviously doesn't have the proper funds to enter a rehabilitation facility, thus sending the person into a downward spiral of addiction. Not all homeless are doing inappropriate activities, though. Some are struggling desperately to get back on their feet and get back into the workforce. If you are in the Greenville area and you feel inclined to help, please contact homeless shelters, soup kitchens, or emergency shelters.